All right, my name is Sue Downey, and welcome to our panel discussion this afternoon. I'm the chair of the education committee for INA, and I'm going to just lay it on the line. I'm not a baby newborn person, but I know a lot of amazing people who love babies and are super knowledgeable about it. And I brought along three this afternoon to discuss the topic. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves in no particular order, and I will start with you, Q. Will you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you and what you do?
No particular order. Thanks, Sue. I am Q. I am a newborn care specialist, certified elite newborn care specialist with a whole lot of other letters and trainings behind my name. Um, I am a former nanny of over 10 years. And let's see, I love travel, I love babies, and I like combining the two. And I'm currently doing that now. So here I am.
Great. Well, thanks for coming. Tanya, I will let you. I don't know if you need an introduction, but you should introduce yourself. Everybody knows Tanya, right?
Well, I don't know about everybody, but we all can always use a good introduction, right?
That's right.
So I am Tanya Sokowitz. I own Newborn Care Solutions. We're a training company. We train newborn care specialists. So Q is in elite year 2 with us. And I have been in the nanny and in-home childcare and NCS industry for, it'll be 36 years this spring. And I am the former co-president of the International Nanny Association.
Awesome. Well, thanks, and thanks for giving up your time this afternoon. And my newest friend is Kristen. Kristen Smith, will you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Kristen. I am a postpartum doula, a newborn care specialist, sleep consultant, trained midwife, birth doula, and the owner of Nightingale Night Nurses. And I have been in the child care, nanny, newborn industry for almost 18 years.
Awesome. So we have a lot of experience on this panel. So I want to start out. I want to start out by addressing this quickly. So when I conceived this panel, it was based on the fact that we thought there was going to be a baby boom. Everyone said there was going to be a baby boom, and anecdotally, all of the NCS that I knew and all of the agencies were super busy with these placements. So we booked it. And then I got an email from a wonderful member who said, wait a minute, where are you getting this information about a baby boom? Birth rates were down in 2020. And I did a quick Google search and I was like, oh my gosh. And so my first thing to bring up, and I'm going to ask Tanya to address this first, and then if you guys want to chime in too, are we having a baby boom? What's going on out there?
Yeah. So what is really going on? The average American, most of us being the average Americans, right, are not experiencing a baby boom. They've actually had a decline in birth rates in 2020, and it's expected to continue into 2021. But the 1%, the elite, the people that are our clients are experiencing a baby boom. Their birth rates have actually increased. And most of the time, well, most of us love to work for your average family, because anybody who's been in this industry for any length of time knows that working for the ultra wealthy can be rewarding, and it can also have a lot of challenges. But at the end of the day, the ultra wealthy are those who can afford long-term newborn care specialists. And what we are seeing, what I know I'm hearing from every one of our students and every agency that we work with, and my inbox is exploding, is there's a baby boom amongst those who can afford them. But there's also the aspect that COVID has impacted even our average families in a different way. So while there may not be more babies being born, there is a huge rise in the demand for care. And there's a lot of theories around that, many of them being that family members who might have otherwise stepped in and supported families are not available. Either they can't travel because of their own medical conditions, or it's not a wise idea for them to travel, or they can't provide a safe enough, a COVID safe enough environment within their own home, or they have a spouse or a family member that's at risk. And so there's a lot of things. So there's not one simple answer to this. But the reality is, at the bottom line, is the wealthy are having a baby boom. So it may not be happening across the board, but it is happening in a segment of the population that can afford newborn care.
Awesome. Yeah, Kristen, I'm sure you're busy, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is, I'm working 14-hour days on admin work. I've never worked this many long hours, this many days in a row. I haven't had a day off in like 3-4 months. It's busy. We are getting families that probably would have never have hired us because, again, they're losing their family support. We have families that are just scraping enough to do one night a week for 12 weeks just for something, for some sort of support. We have families that are doing live-in care that wouldn't have normally considered live-in care. We have a waiting list currently for March and April. I've never had a waiting list since my agency's been in business. I have also hired probably 10 more people in the past 6 months, and that's my biggest jump in hiring new team members. So it's something that we've never experienced before. But it also, these people are coming in very clear with what they're wanting too. So I think that's a difference. Usually people would take more time to ponder it and think about it, and ask more questions and like research it a little bit. Now they're coming in and they're literally signing a contract in a week. So it's also different. Everything is very much rushed. And everyone wants to make sure that they have care in place because there's so many unknowns with COVID.
Right. Okay, I also posted an article that Tanya had shared with me from a website that's talking about this, where with the boom in the so we're gonna just treat this like it is a boom because it's a boom of some kind for us, and so then my first question is, let's see, where should we start? Let's start with so we all know that things are different because of COVID. So are there things as an NCS or agency or just in general that you have to keep in mind with new parents in this time of COVID? Like, do you have to, I'm sure you have to approach it differently, but what kinds of things do you have to think about going into that? And what would be wise to make sure from a marketing perspective that you're sharing with parents about being with newborns in the time of COVID?
So I have had to change my perspective. As you know, the moment I think about entering someone's home, you have to mask up. And working with various clients, I have to change clothes between clients. And I also have to ask more questions about their COVID precautions and safety. And I think that varies from family to family, right? Like, everyone thinks that they're cautious, and really some people are less cautious than others, and it only takes one person who's infected with COVID and doesn't know it in order to just disrupt your entire bubble. So I've been tested more for COVID and had more scares as an NCS working with multiple clients than I've ever had, just living my normal everyday life as a nanny before this. So I also I have to be more prepared, and but the biggest thing that I've done, the biggest change that I've made is just to continue to try to boost my immunity and wear a mask with the babies and around clients, and try to social distance from them while I'm in their home even, and take more precautions as far as sanitization and things are concerned.
Yeah, and I think a couple of good things to remember here is that there's no right or wrong answer for COVID, right? Everyone has their own comfort level of what feels right to them and what doesn't feel right to them. And I think transparency is huge, especially with me, with the whole team. I'm diving deeper into people's personal lives than I ever have. Do I want to do that? No. Is it taking tons of time? Yes, but it's important to know, do you work from home? Is your spouse going to work from home? Do you have children? Are they in daycare? Are they not in daycare? What is your plan for them? Are you going to communicate with us and tell us if you've been exposed and who's outside your bubble? It's finding all of those pieces and figuring out what families are okay with what scenario. Do you want regular testing? Do you want them to be COVID vaccinated? And these are questions that I get asked every single day. And families are like, what's the right answer? There isn't one. It's what feels right to your family and in your home, and we'll support that. It's not, we'll find the right team member that's going to fit all of those needs, and their comfort levels match up with your comfort levels. So I think that, doing a little bit of soul searching about what feels right to you and what you're comfortable doing, and be very transparent about that and ask those questions up front, because the last thing you want is to sign up with a family and they're like, oh, by the way, we want you to test twice a week. And you're like, whoa, that's a little much for me, because testing twice a week is actually exposing me more than just working with your family. So figuring out what those are and be very, very clear on your interviews of what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do.
Yeah, I think those are some great points, Kristen. I would add two more things to that. One, from having been exposed and getting COVID, understanding what everyone's definition of COVID safe is. Because as Kristen said, everybody has their different comfort level, what this means to them, and everybody has a different definition for COVID safe. So having a clear understanding of what that is for any family that you're working with and any NCS, so that those two things can be matched and everybody's on the same page. And if you're working on your own, or if it's an agency that's placing newborn care specialists independently, having a COVID clause in your contract that addresses exposure, how payment is handled, what will happen, who has to notify who, and actually having that in writing, just like any other aspect of something that has the potential to be a problem in a contract. This needs to be addressed up front too. And all of these things, this is new for all of us in the last year, and it's made some drastic changes in the NCS world for sure.
Yeah, and Tanya, you touched on a really good point of having a clause in your contract about COVID. I know personally from my agency, we don't let clients cancel for anything COVID related. Like, you're hiring us in a pandemic, you're fully aware of that going in, we're reserving our time and turning other families away. So being very clear, we're also being very clear and telling them at 3 different points of, from start of their relationship with us to like signing their contract to then after having their baby, of what our COVID policies are, and what we do to keep our team safe, and what we do to keep our family safe, and the level of communication that we expect. And the more they have it, I just always send it at them in 3 different angles, right? And so they always have it, they can always reference it, and there's really no questions about what we missed.
So this is so interesting. This brings up a question I hadn't thought of, but are there things now that you would add to your practices as an NCS that you maybe wouldn't have before because the dynamics are so different? Or are there things that you want parents to know that you won't do, that should be explicitly explained that you won't do because of the situation now? Like, has it changed the general job descriptions?
I wouldn't say it's changed the job description. I would say it would change how we enter and leave their home, and what we're doing outside of their home that we normally wouldn't have thought is any of their business, right? But we're being fully disclosing of that. I also think that, making them understand that you have everything you're doing, you're thinking about how it's going to affect their family, right? So yes, I'm washing my hands. Yes, I'm changing my clothes when you get to your house. Yes, I'm removing my shoes at the door. Yes, I'm following my governor's local laws on wearing masks. Yes, I'm social distancing. No, I'm not going to eat in restaurants, and being transparent about that. It has affected our everyday lives, which is then affecting how families ask us questions and things that we wouldn't put in. So I know some people wanting contracts, like what type of mask they can wear and can't wear in a house. I know that some team members want it listed that the families have to have a certain, amount of hand sanitizer, rubbing alcohol around. So I don't think the job description has changed. No, I think how we present ourselves and going in and out of the house and communicating with families has changed, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it totally does. So I want to shift gears just slightly and talk about, so now we've had sort of a year, but like we had been talking about before the panel started, it hasn't really, nothing that we predicted a year ago has it transpired exactly the way that we thought that it would. So we're in this busy time now, and are there things that NCS businesses, agencies, anyone in this space should be doing to prepare for how busy it? I mean, I guess you're already in the busy, so you can't really prepare. But are there systems that you put in place to help handle some of this? Like, what's your best business advice on dealing with this crazy time? And I hope it's not that you need more hours of the day to work. I'm so worried about you, Kristen. I'm sending you like.
That's my choice.
Yeah. As newborn care specialists are used to being overworked and underslept, right? Yeah. We know what that looks like. I would say from our perspective, and we, agency training is part of what we do. We don't just train the newborn care specialists. We also train nanny agencies. Now, somebody like Kristen, who came at this from a different perspective, with a doula background, she already knows how to do this. She doesn't need that. But nanny agencies need to make a little bit of a shift in how they do things. Their interview process needs to be better. They need to understand questions that are related to newborns. No NCS wants to see what do you like to do in the afternoon with a 3-year-old on an interview form. If that's on an interview form, they're moving on. They're done with you. But they don't need to. Right now there's enough work there. They don't need to be there. Job descriptions need to be accurate. Okay, a nanny is not an NCS, is not a postpartum doula. Those are 3 different job titles, and not a night nanny. Those are actually 4 different job titles with different descriptions. Now, some families want somebody who's a little bit of both, but having a really accurate and accurately worded job description that includes hours and experience and rate and area and lots of detail is huge for an NCS to decide if they want to work with it or not. And really having somebody dedicated to it that knows what they're doing.
Yeah. And also too, having all of your stuff organized as an agency. When I have potential NCSs or postpartum doulas or anyone applying to me, don't take 2 months to get your stuff over. Have it all ready to go and be prepared and read. If the list says to do something in a certain way or email things over versus screenshotting and texting it, follow directions. We pay attention to you following directions. If we post a job and it says, do not private message us, don't private message us, right? Like that's the number one red flag of like, you can't follow that instruction, toodaloo, you get off our list, right? And I mean that in like, as a learning lesson, and I'll comment back and say, please go back and read the job description. And that's the only time I'll reply and say anything. And in terms of like an agency being ready to handle this number of clients and families and team members, systems, have your hiring process, have your inboarding or onboarding with your clients, have it set up from the very first time they contact you through your website until your contract is signed and what you're going to send them after. I mean, we have so many workflows that have really simplified the way that we work. We have so many lists of things that we need to get done and accomplish and talk to clients about and even get documentation from them. And the more you set up workflows and systems, the easier it will run for you. I mean, I think about how we were a year ago. I'm far more prepared now than I ever was. And every client brings in a new twist and a new learning curve where I'm like, oh yeah, I need to add this to my list. And it's always evolving and it's always changing. And every time you think you're like in a good place with a great system, you need to change it and add more because something happens. And that's okay. That's how you learn and grow. And then, one thing I will say as an agency, ask, or even as an NCS doing this privately, ask for feedback, whether it's positive or negative. Negative feedback helps you grow and change. And I think that's the number one thing that helps us do our systems better, to be better to work with for our team and our clients, right? If I'm doing something wrong or it doesn't work for you, tell us. And that's the only way that you can improve and grow.
Right. Q, I want to ask you, so we have a lot of newer NCS I see coming because this need is there. I see more and more people. Plus, a lot of people had time to do the training while they were not working over the past, year. So if you're new as an NCS, maybe you don't have your personal business built up so much. Is there, do you have any advice for them, for the people coming into this now, as how to navigate this smoothly or things not to forget?
So for me, it's tricky. I started laying the groundwork to transition from being a nanny to an NCS, and it's taken me 2 years in this process to get to where I am. I came from being a very successful nanny in my prime, with a lot of newborn experience, with a lot of varying experience, to just transitioning solely into being a newborn care specialist. I think it really depends on your market and where you are and your flexibility and what you're willing to do. If you're willing to travel and, sort of be a nomad for a little bit, and be away from home and be prepared to go someplace where there is the baby boom, then it may all work better in your favor. But I think that you should also do a lot of networking and just be prepared. You can't just take a training and voila, you're a newborn care specialist and you know everything and you're ready to go. My support system in this transition, being an elite student, and just being a student of newborn care solutions, has been invaluable to me. Just being able to ask questions, because it's not just going from nanny to newborn care specialist. It's also going from, you were an employee, to now this is your business. And now you have to know how to manage a business. And so not only are you taking care of babies, but you're also now taking care of your payroll, bank accounts, all these different steps. You have to have a contract in place. Even if you're working with an agency, there are so many different things. Like, my list is just ever growing of things that I need to accomplish. And with my schedule, working overnights, 12-hour shifts, and I'm working almost 70 hours a week, I don't have time and the bandwidth to get all of that stuff done. So you can't just jump straight into it. You do have to sort of be prepared for it, especially now when, we are in demand. I came here to a new place expecting to work 15 hours a week, and I worked 15 hours my first week, and it's been 60 to 100 plus hour weeks, pretty much since I got here, and I'm 3 months in. And I'm turning down clients constantly, even in the middle of a pandemic. So you just have to prepare yourself, and mentally, physically, emotionally, just be ready to give, but also to value self-care in the middle of all of that as well, so you don't burn out, because COVID is stressful. It's just something that's constantly on your mind. And just being on edge about exposure and everything else, and exposing family. So there's a lot in that to unpack.
Yeah, Tanya, Kristen, do you guys have any advice for our newer? Oh, I have a little echo. I hope it goes away. Do you have any advice for our newer NCS?
So I would say I agree with Q that it is not just about training, or not just about signing up with an agency. It really can be one of those things where it takes some planning and it takes some thought. And if you don't have a backup system, or if this is income that you're dependent on to survive on, then you need to have some savings so that you can look at, is this client being safe? Or is this agency that I'm working with supporting me and requiring that clients be safe? I know Kristen, so I know she does a really good job around this, but not everybody does. And I think everybody wants to. So it's not there's some bad people out there. I think everybody wants to do a good job around it. They just don't always think it through as much. And being really intentional about step by step, because if you end up getting COVID, if you're off work or, it interferes with your ability to work, that can be really challenging. And if you don't have something to live on for 2, 4, 6, I tell my students have at least 2 months of income tucked away in the bank, not 2 months of bills, but 2 months of income, so that you can afford to be picky and make sure that you're being safe right now. But the reality is there's a lot of work out there. And the other thing I would say is if you're new to this, learn everything you can and network with professionals who can be a support for you, because Q hit it right on the head. She's 100% right. This is stressful right now. It's really stressful. And NCS work tends to be stressful anyway. I joke about it. I talk about it all the time. Sleep deprivation is a form of torture for a reason, because it works. And we are in a constant state of sleep deprivation if you are a working NCS. And so having that solid support and that solid plan is huge.
Yeah, and also plan accordingly. It's okay to plan and space clients out with a few weeks break in between. It's actually essential to do that for yourselves. I have team members who are like, load me up. And I'm like, you kind of want a little bit of a break, because if this baby comes 2 weeks late and this baby comes a week early, you really only got like 5 days of space here. It's figuring out fitting in your self-care. It's being very clear and transparent with an agency or a family of what works for you and what doesn't. If you're like a people pleaser and you're always saying, yes, I'll do, you need to really focus on yourself and find that time for self-care and set some really firm boundaries, because it's very, very hard work. Now, my long 14-hour days are at home in my office, and I can do things and take breaks or go for a walk or bring my dog out. Not all those long days are with clients. I still work with clients myself, and there's times where I have to shut down and not do anything for a few hours, or not even a full day. But it's important, and it's okay to say no, right? If it's not a great fit for you, the next job will come, and it's not worth killing yourself mentally and physically to get that job. There will be others, and it's okay to say no if it's not a great fit for you. And that should be very important as well.
Yes. So this is also good. I want to change gears again and ask you about marketing, because I think that's important when we have these big booms. I know there's tons of jobs right now, but what I've noticed is in the nanny market, and I'm assuming it's fairly similar in the NCS, there's the NCS that everybody wants, and then there's the others. And the ones that you want to be one of the ones that everybody wants, right? Even in a boom time, even when there's jobs, because those jobs pay more or they're more secure or whatever. And it just gives you a peace of mind. So I guess what I'd like to know is, either for agencies or for nanny or for NCS, what kind of marketing things do you need to consider in this environment? We sort of touched a little bit about being clear about your COVID, that part of it, but are there other things that people can do?
Well, I would say one thing that I'm hearing a lot is from a lot of the agencies is well-rounded education. So this is the time to invest in yourself, because education is never an expense. It's always an investment, and you are investing in you and you're investing in your future. What I'm hearing is, I want somebody who's an NCS, who has lactation training, who has baby wearing training, who is Montessori or Rye trained. I'm hearing we want it all, and we want it all in one person, ideally. But what I'm also hearing is those families who are asking for it all are also willing to pay for it. And so taking that time to invest in yourself and invest in your education can be huge in making you a much more marketable, essentially, this is going to sound horrible, but a marketable commodity.
I mean, that's what it is. So I think that's good.
I think too, I always tell women that I'm, coaching or working with that are building their businesses, In terms of marketing, you're not just marketing your company, you're marketing yourself, right? So put the marketing piece aside, but how do people see you? How do they view you on your personal social media account? How do they view you if they Google something and find something about you? I am always saying everything you do can be found, right? I'm a very, very quiet social media person. I don't talk politics. I rarely give my personal opinions on things. I mean, I chime in on some groups, but I don't want people to Google and be like, oh, she supports this, or oh, she posted an article about that. I very much care about my reputation in that way. And that's part of marketing yourself, right? It's not just your company and what your company does. It's also your person that you want to make sure, however they're going to search for you and look you up, everything is coming into that. And just like also like Tanya said, get as many pieces of education as you can. The families who are willing to pay for top-notch care want everything, and they want you to be good at it, and they want you to have experience. So think about, all those pieces put together.
I agree with everything they both just said, and you can't stop. You can't just say, "Oh, I got this training, I'm done." I'm a lifelong learner for a reason. I'm always planning my next training. So, while I'm a CPST, while I'm a baby wearing educator, an NCS, all of a sleep consultant, all of these things, lactation is next, and then a certain other training is next, and it just never ends, and it can't end. I don't even have a website, but I'm constantly getting inboxed, about, oh, we have a client for you. Oh, so many people are ready to interview and hire, but I don't have the time and the flexibility to please anyone. I'm solidly booked for the foreseeable future at this point. And as much as I would love to give back and help other clients, I can't do that. But what I've done is really just set myself up. Like I said, over the course of my entire career, really, I set myself up online as an expert, so that people will come to me and ask me questions, or, want to know what I think about different things. And then that sets you apart from other NCS, especially when you have multiple disciplines under your belt. So just be prepared for that. It's not all about having a website or a social media page, but it's about networking and who you know as well, and just, continuing to learn more, continuing to read and study, and not just focus on one specific area.
It just occurred to me that I wanted to ask this question because, and this may be just because I'm not an NCS and I don't know much about it, but has the traveling part of being an NCS changed through all of this? Like, do you have to stick closer to your home, or are clients willing to travel and have you quarantine? Like, how has that been affected?
We have clients. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. It varies. I've had a lot of clients, willing to fly you in private. There's a lot more private traveling happening than commercial travel now. Some clients want you to be within driving distance of a couple hours so that you're not commuting and driving and stopping to get gas and exposing yourself over the course of some days. So I think that it varies based on, again, everybody's COVID safe um, thoughts and intentions.
We have clients that are more focused on, it being a good fit for them, like the NCS being a good fit for their family, and then we work out those logistics later. So we have team members that are still flying. Some are private, some are commercial. Some are wearing N95, some are wearing shields. I mean, there's a lot that's happening. We are quarantining if the family requests it, which is like a paid quarantine from 10 to 14 days. Some are driving. I wouldn't say that our families are stressing out over it. I would say that once they figure out the person they're going to go with and that's a great fit for them, then we work out those details to get them here safely. So I would say it's not that it's not a concern, but it's an easy fixable piece where if we do it safely and in the right way, then everyone will be fine.
Perfect.
I would agree. I'm hearing the same things that Kristen and Q have shared, especially a lot more private flying, a lot more private flying, and a lot of NCS posting, "Hey, I may never go back to a commercial flight again." I'm like, I know, it's addicting, isn't it? But so we're still seeing NCS travel all over the country.
Okay.
And even NCS, when they're working with medical fragile babies, I've seen NCS who are getting permission to travel internationally to countries that if they get tested and there's a doctor's order that they need the care, that they're traveling internationally as well. And I know several NCS who are working for families who essentially have either escaped to the country or have escaped the country and have just flat out left and haven't come back. And so it's all over the board, but travel is definitely still happening in the NCS world, just a little bit differently.
Yeah. Interesting. I'm going to let everybody know we have a little bit more time left. If you have a question, if you want to put it in the chat or raise your hand, and I'm happy to throw it to the panel, and they'll try to answer it as they've answered everything so brilliantly. So you guys have all mentioned that having relationships within the industry help, not just other NCS, but relationships with agencies. How do you go about building those right now? Like, is there any great way to reach out, or it's hard right now to build a relationship from scratch?
I think getting...
Go ahead.
Okay, Kristen.
No, go ahead.
Keep doing that. Go ahead, please.
I would say, a lot of us are connecting on Facebook. A lot of us are connecting in groups. Zoom meetings are, probably not going to go away anytime soon. We are talking on the phone. I'm finding more people are posting when they get to a certain area and they're like, "Who's here? Can we meet outside or have a virtual coffee or something?" But again, those are ways we always connected, like through Facebook and email and phone, because we're busy and we're always traveling and not necessarily in the same area. So there's some things that haven't changed and there's some things that have, or maybe we're intentionally setting Zoom meetings for coffee breaks that get several of us together because we can't do it in person. But I would say that not a lot of that has really changed.
I agree. And I also, what I've done even in the past as a nanny and now as an NCS, what I do is search on different search engines for different agencies. And I use special keywords just to find out what agencies actually have what I want. I have a specific type of clientele that I like to work for. And so being able to search that way and find out, okay, this agency may not be up to my standards. Their intake capabilities may not work for me. But now a lot of agencies are doing things online. So also just having, again, a network to ask and say, hey, what do you think about this agency? Or what do you think about that person? But a lot of jobs now are even coming through word of mouth because so many NCS are declining jobs that they have to reach out with their big net and try to reel in some fish.
Yeah, NCS are good at like just being like, hey, I'm in this town. Who else is here? And then there's like a whole bunch of them. It's so impressive. It's like the old days. That's how it used to be when you were a nanny before the internet. You would have to just like call somebody. It's very funny to me. Okay, did anybody have any questions? It doesn't look like it, but if you think of something, we still have a few more minutes. I guess I'm just gonna ask, like, what other, I'm sure I haven't asked the right question yet, so I'm gonna ask the panel to maybe we'll start with you, Q, because I like to put you on the spot. Is there any other general advice for this time? Like, what other things can you think of that would be helpful to know to make this lucrative and also not lose your mind at the same time?
Oh goodness, that's hard. Self-care. That's one thing that I always fall back on, and it's difficult to safely do that. Of course, in the middle of a pandemic, and knowing that you may be caring for medically fragile children or infants. So just taking care of yourself as much as you possibly can, resting when you can. I know that right now between my commute and work shifts that I only have 10 hours of my day left to sleep or do anything else that I have to do, and try to establish a new business. So just making sure that you're taking care of yourself in the middle of all of this, because it is, again, very stressful. And check on your friends, check on your other NCS who are in this industry, not just to ask them about jobs, but to make sure they're okay. It's all about building relationships with people, and making sure that you have a good support system in place.
I think Q made a really great point right there. And this is pandemic or not, is newborn care specialists. Nannying is isolating anyway. Newborn care specialist work is really isolating. So newborn care specialists have to be much more intentional, even when everything is going great, about self-care and about reaching out to their network and staying connected and really being intentional about taking care of themselves, because we're already very isolated. I tell newborn care specialists, find out whatever it is that fixes you, whether that's a therapist or whether, like Marley does, and go to a float spa, or whatever it is for you. Having a place to help fix you is huge. For me, it's 100 feet under the water. So, and I can't do that right now. So it's making me crazy. But whatever that is, you got to do it.
Yeah, and they all hit really good points. Figuring out, I always tell my team, you got to figure out your soft spot for your magic number to get a nap in, right? Some of us, most of us sleep when we're working with babies during the shift anyways, when babies are sleeping. But what's your magic number? Do you need a 3-hour nap? Do you need a 5-hour nap? Do you need a 6-hour nap? And then make that happen. Because if you don't hit the number you need, there's no way you're going to be refreshed enough to keep going in this career. I always joke that mudslides and hot tubs are my two pieces to keeping me going. But everyone's different. Mine used to be pedicures. I can't go get those all the time like I used to, especially if I'm working with babies. I'm not going to go in and out and do that stuff. In terms of working in COVID, making sure your contracts are really good and really tight, that they're protecting you just as much as your client will want it to protect them. Right? That's really important. And just being open and transparent, and knowing that there's really hard conversations to be had around COVID, and not everyone's comfortable talking about it, but they just have to be had, and being very clear about what works for you and what doesn't.
Yeah. Kim, I see your hand is up. Do you want to unmute and ask your question?
Yes, I put it in the chat, but I don't think anyone saw it. I wanted to know what category we're in, NCSs are in for the COVID-19 vaccine. They have the categories of essential work, and I don't see anything that matches.
Yeah, so I can answer that. And I did see your question, but we have to wait till we can answer it. It depends on your state, and it depends on your municipality. So I'm in Arizona. We were 1A. I'm not able to get a COVID vaccine for health reasons, but if I were able to, I would have been able to get one right out of the gate, because we work with premature newborn babies. Other states, I'm hearing that they fall into the same category as nannies, and they're not available for some people yet. For others, it's available, but they have to put like they're a postpartum worker. So it's going to vary. And the best thing that you can do is call your state health department and find out what the regulations are in your area. Because Arizona was one of the very first states where newborn care specialists could get the vaccine. And so, it's really going to depend on where you are at.
I'm in Maryland and we can get it, but I don't, the categories that they give,
Mm-hmm.
it's either like daycare workers or, which we're not that, but, and then another one, I think I put like, um, assisted living or something, which of course we're not that either, but I think it matched more. Like there's not really a category for us.
No, unfortunately, there's not a category specifically for that. And I think you probably did the best you could, which was to choose the category that was the closest to what you do in that circumstance.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and it changes county by county because I know here in Pennsylvania, I mean, we're a big state too, but it definitely was, and it changed. So even as nannies, we were 1B, then we got moved up to 1A, but NCSs were below us for a while, but then they moved them up to like where with nursing so that they were not just 1A, they were healthcare workers. And so, but it didn't change in all the counties. So is there any, do you have paperwork as an NCS that, like, you don't have a license or anything that explains what you do, but maybe certifications that
So, yeah, some of our students have used certification. Absolutely. The cash certification. They've used that. Certificates of training. Some of them use contracts from employers or clients that they're working with. Kristen and Q, what are you guys experiencing?
So we've had some not ask for any documentation. I wrote a letter for every single one of my team members that wanted to get a vaccination, that they worked for Nightingales. So that covered that. Some would bring that letter, their certifications, their contract with my company. I mean, we tried to hit it at every different angle. I think I only had 2 girls that had to provide documentation. I've been contemplating ordering name badges for everyone for if something like this happened again, but I don't know how comfortable I feel having name badges. So, you know, I got it. And they didn't even ask me to put a category down once I filled out to make my appointments. So I think it's very different depending on the testing location and the state that you're in.
Mm-hmm.
Well, question, are we healthcare workers? That was one of the categories, but I didn't think we were healthcare workers.
So we were told in our state to put it, to choose in-home healthcare providers. That was what we were told to go under. So if you have the in-home option, you could try going that route, but I wouldn't choose like a straight up healthcare provider. But call your local board of health. They're going to tell you. I called, you know, the board of health in several different states trying to navigate this and figure it out for all the team members that wanted it. And everyone has a different answer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very confusing.
Mm-hmm.
Mishas, I see your lovely hand is up.
Oh, hi everyone. My name is Meches. I just have a question about NCS. Is possible to be an NCS during the day, not the nighttime, during the day, because I cannot do the nighttime, but I love babies and I've been studying with Tanya, but I want to be NCS during the day. Is that possible?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I've been working both days and nights. I've been switching actually back and forth.
Oh,
People are
okay.
asking, you know, my shifts change. They
Okay.
vary based on families and what their needs are.
Okay.
But I would say it's probably more common now to have daytime care because, again, people don't have access to their support system. And so now maybe a hybrid between a newborn care specialist and a postpartum doula, wherein you're probably making some food or snacks for the mom or different things. Your scope sort of blends a little bit or changes with that daytime role in some cases. So it varies based on the position, but it is definitely possible to just work days instead of nights as an NTS.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Well, unless anybody has anything else, I feel like I learned a lot. Once again, I really appreciate the years of experience and insight, and I know that it's hard. You're busy right now to give up some of your free time to do this, but I so appreciate it, Tanya, Kristen, and Q. I do want to say that if you're looking for another way to meet other NCS or to take some additional training, the INA Summit is this weekend, which is March 13th. If you're watching this in time, you can sign up for that, I think, for a few more days. And there is an NCS track of workshops, as well as lots of opportunities to meet other NCS. And the INA conference is traditionally a lot of NCS. It's a great place to meet other NCS and agencies, that in your space. And also, I wanted to mention Tanya's class. If you're an INA member, Tanya's class has a discount. It's one of our member advantage providers on the foundational program. If you're looking for training as an INA member, you can get a little discount, which is nice because every dollar counts right now, before you rake in the big bucks from this baby boom, right? Here's what I predict. I predict at the end of 2021, maybe the beginning of 2022, there's going to be some giant island getaway with 1 million NCSs who all worked for 1 million hours all through all of this, and then they just go someplace amazing and have a great time, and we're all jealous.
I'm here for that.
That I keep joking with people that I'm either going to put myself in the mental institution or spa when this is done. And I'm really looking for a facility that has mental health resources and spa treatments.
I would like to be on the beach, get a massage, have a therapy session, and then take a nap.
And then a facial. We can just keep going.
Right. A good therapist is highly underrated many times in our industry.
Listen, I hope whatever it is, it's someplace that we can all be together, because that's what I miss most, is being together with all of you. So thank you so much for your time today, and thanks for coming, everyone. And if you're going to work, be careful, take care of yourself. If you're just home, go to bed, and we'll see you again next time. Thanks so much.